7 months ago, it was the Philadelphia Eagles who raised the Lombardi Trophy high, stunning the Kansas City Chiefs, and in so doing, claimed their second Super Bowl success in franchise history. In the offseason since, draft picks have been made, free agents signed, and some stunning trades agreed. But who will rise from the ashes to challenge the Eagles for their crown this time around? Will it be a familiar face in the AFC? Could it be the Kansas City Chiefs out for revenge? The Buffalo Bills? The Baltimore Ravens, perhaps? Or in the NFC, could it be a team like the reinforced Green Bay Packers looking to claim their first Lombardi Trophy in more than a decade? Or perhaps a new sheriff could be in town this season. Maybe a Jim Harbaugh-coached LA Chargers. Maybe a Sean Payton-coached Denver Broncos who haven't won a playoff game, let alone a Super Bowl, since they last won the Lombardi Trophy a decade ago. Well, all will soon be revealed. An 18-week regular season, followed by a postseason that leads us to one place. Santa Clara, California, Super Bowl 60. That's right, folks. A new campaign is just around the corner, and that means a new season of Graves on Gridiron begins right now. Hello, welcome along to the show. A new season is upon us, and Graves on Gridiron is going to take you through it week by week, highlight by highlight. And we start with a bang, because for those watching via our YouTube channel, you will see none other than Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan and broadcaster extraordinaire wearing some absurd baseball cap, which I'm sure he'll explain why shortly. Daggers, Charles Dagnall, great to have you along for week one. What are you wearing?
Yeah, okay, let's nip this in the bud straight away. Okay, this is a present. It was a gift. The reasons are twofold. One, it's Graves on Gridiron. So obviously I want to keep in with the NFL theme. Secondly, it was a present. It was a present from someone close, so I couldn't ask to return it and get the one that I actually wanted. And so I've decided to don this being an extraordinarily bad hair day. You don't suffer from this. You don't suffer from bad hair days. I do. And so I've decided to just wear it and take the grief from you, and anyone else, which is forthcoming. But it is lovely to be back. Thank you for inviting me. I'm always loved doing your show. And it's that time, isn't it, Rich? I'm ready and fit to burst for the season.
As are we indeed. And I do notice, and I appreciate the fact that even you, Daggers, couldn't bring yourself to mention the team that caps sports. It is the Green Bay Packers. It coincides with one of the biggest storylines of the offseason. A shocker, quite frankly. No less than 7 days before the season kicks off in a city of brotherly love, the Dallas Cowboys will play the reigning champion Philadelphia Eagles, and it will be without their star pass rusher, Micah Parsons, because the Cowboys' star pass rusher is now the star pass rusher of the Green Bay Packers.
It is, well, I knew you would like to talk about this as much as it has hurt you, being a Dallas Cowboy fan, and the soap opera that is always surrounded Jera World and what's going on. And I thought you'd enjoy me pulling out a few stats on Micah Parsons.
No, I don't.
Just to show you what you've lost. Very quickly, I mean, it was always going to. We thought it was the game that was being played, didn't we? Mike Parsons saying, "I want to be traded. I'm not happy," and with the agent and Jarrett, discussing terms with him rather than getting the agent involved, and it's been going on for a while. Usually, this is sometimes a play to suddenly, before the season, oh, we love everyone again, and we've re-signed him on this contract. As it turns out, that's not happened. And given what Jarrett has paid out to Jerry Jones, of course, what he's paid out to other star talent, maybe overpaying for star talent, which means he can't necessarily afford to keep Micah Parsons. So I just think a generational player. What did you get? You got 2 first-round picks and Kenny Clark from the Green Bay Packers.
Correct.
They're going to be late first-round picks. Let's be right. Green Bay are a decent outfit, and so maybe that might just when you add it to the Cowboys first pick and the Green Bay first pick, that might get you up the draft order and be enough in the bank to try and get yourself a better better draft position for the following year. That said, these guys don't grow on trees, Richard, do they? And the stat that I've pulled out, the most sacks in the first 4 seasons, all time, Reggie White, Derek Thomas, J.J. Watt, DeMarcus Ware, and Micah Parsons. When you are on that list, you don't get rid of them. And of those 2 players, it's only Reggie White and Micah Parsons who have got 12 plus sacks in each of their first 4 seasons. When you are on a list with Reggie White, you don't get rid of them. You find a way. And the Green Bay Packers, I think 2 first rounders and Kenny Clark for a generational defensive player, a game-changing defensive player, is a bargain. What say you?
Well, you clearly did not listen to what Jerry Jones had to say in his post-trade press conference. The trade of Micah Parsons actually makes the Dallas Cowboys stronger. Kenny Clark was brought in because the Dallas Cowboys need to stop the run. It's been a problem defensively for the last 3 years. Kenny Clark immediately upgrades that interior defensive line. The pass rushing depth chart is the deepest on the Cowboys roster right now. They've got extra first round picks in 2026 and 2027. It's the bigger plan. It's the greater picture, if you like. The Cowboys are all in right now.
Is anybody listening or is anybody buying what you are selling, Richard Graves? I don't think, even though you have just explained the process behind Jarrah's mad thinking, I don't even think you're buying that, are you?
I think we should talk about the first of the 3 games we're going to preview this week, which will be a seamless transition to Lambeau Field because it is the Packers hosting the Detroit Lions. Without question, look, on a serious note, the acquisition of Micah Parsons for 2 first-round picks, as you quite rightly point out, in all probability, they're going to be picked 20 and later because you just cannot see, given the recent history with Matt LaFleur as head coach, any way that the Packers are a bust team over the next 2 years. That if they're not going to be in the playoffs, they're going to be on the cusp of the playoffs. I expect them to make the postseason. You've now got Micah Parsons, obviously, on one side of that defensive line, rushing the passer. On the other, you've got Rashan Gary. It really is a fearsome front that you're looking at if you're playing the Packers. You've got Xavier McKinney in the backfield, who was a ball hawk last season. And you've got still a relatively young quarterback in Jordan Love, who I think his best days are still ahead of him. So I like the Packers to be in the mix once again. I think this is a fascinating matchup week 1, taking on an NFC North rival. And this is the stat which will be chewed over between now and game time on Sunday. The Lions in the last 7 meetings, home and away against the Green Bay Packers, have a 6-1 record. The last time the Packers won at Lambeau Field against Detroit was the 20th of September, 4 years ago, 2021. So when you look at this game, what stands out for you, Daggers?
Many things. And what I want to have a look at is these Green Bay wideouts, and especially the first round pick in Matthew Golden. Packers didn't have a 1,000-yard receiver last year. And they've got this, I look at people like Romeo Dobbs, I look at Jaden Reed, Christian Watson. Now, Christian Watson is your deep threat. He only had 29 catches, but for 620, and he was averaging 21 yards per grab. When you add Matthew Golden, if he is the player, and do you remember Matthew Golden at Green Bay in the draft, and when he went out and he came out on stage and then went out into the crowd and they just went absolutely nuts. If he can be the player, if he can be their Devontae Adams type of player who is, sort of 80 grabs a year and then just freeing up the offense a little bit and also taking players away potentially from that deep threat of Christian Watson, I think Jordan Love can really, really improve. I think he adds a lot to that receiving core, which I was a little bit disappointed in last season. Having said that, the Packers were 5th in total offense last year. 6th in total defense. This is a seriously good team. And just adding these pieces in Micah Parsons, as you say, opposite Rashan Gary, a young defensive line. Quay Walker and Edgerrin Cooper in the linebacking core. I think I read that Walker is on a contract year. Edgerrin Cooper had a great rookie season as well. This is a team, I think, that is, in a, on the flip side, could be in a very, very difficult division. And that's the beauty of these matchups. So I want to see Jordan Love. He's got a bell cow in Josh Jacobs. You can sort of write him down. If he stays fit, you can write him down for 1,300, 1,400 yards. That shouldn't be a problem. A pretty decent offensive line. And so it's all about the receivers for me, for Green Bay, and how they link up with Jordan Love. And if they can, Rich, I think they could be a really, really dominant force.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the name of the rookie first-round draft pick, Matthew Golden, because Packers fans for years have been crying out for their organization to take a receiver in the first round. Previously, Aaron Rodgers, now Jordan Love. Give your quarterback somebody to throw at. And Matthew Golden is a fascinating prospect for me because I don't know what to make of him. He ran a sub 4.3 40. He's got pace to burn. You would think he was a deep threat. The problem is the knock from all the scouts you hear is that he struggles to get separation, as good a route runner as he can be. He struggles against physical defensive backs. And you look at the way he finished last year at Texas. He had a standout nationally televised postseason game against Georgia when he had 162 receiving yards, no TDs in that game. But then against Arizona State, 149 receiving yards, 1 touchdown. However, against Clemson and then Ohio State, remember the Longhorns lost to Ohio State in a championship playoff. Just 4 receptions combined across those 2 games. Minimal yardage. Never found his way to the end zone. So whilst everybody looked at McMillan and said the guy that went to Carolina and said he was the consensus number 1 receiver in the draft, Matthew Golden, is his pace something to be feared at a professional level? Can he deliver? Or is it one of those old Oakland Raiders, as it was, type things when Al Davis wanted speed, but athletes don't make good NFL players? That's what I want to find out, and I guess we will do over the coming weeks and months. As for the Detroit Lions, look, I look at what they do. Tremendously disappointing way to finish last season. Number 1 seed in the NFC. You have a home playoff game. You lose
Washington,
sensationally. So now Dan Campbell, with that fire and brimstone personality of his, it's been great to get them there. Can he now pick this team up off the canvas, turn them around, and deliver on the promise we saw 12 months ago?
What do you think here? Because you've lost your 2 coordinators. So Aaron Glenn, the defensive coordinator, has gone to New York Jets. Ben Johnson's gone to the Chicago Bears. And there's another little intricate soap opera within a game in that, you know, Ben Johnson now within the division is a head coach in the NFC North. So he's got John Morton, who is experienced. The Detroit Lions. He's been there before. He's helped shape Bo Nix. Offensive coordinator John Morton, who's helped shape Bo Nix a little bit in Denver. He returns to Detroit and so knows some of the players a little bit as well and what they do, reading a little bit from some of the reaction, but you always get this pre-season that the offensive players of Detroit like him. It's not too dissimilar to what they've had already, but with a few little twists and a different, you know, scheme that Morton's trying to implement, and they've hired from within. So from a defensive standpoint,
Kelvin Shepherd
taking over from Aaron Glenn. So I think this is Detroit's. I think from a persona point of view, they've not lost anybody on offense. They've added, is it Isaac Teslar, the receiver, who's apparently been turning heads in Detroit. They don't need that many more weapons. I wrote them down here. Remember, you've got Amon-Ra, Jameson Williams, Khalif Raymond, now adding Isaac Teslar and Sam Laporta, catching the ball from Jared Goff, Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery, you know, the thunder and lightning behind
that
him.
offense is loaded, isn't it?
It's absolutely loaded, and bar Frank Ragnall's retirement, they've put Glasgow in at centre, and is it Rutledge, the new right guard? The offensive line ain't a problem either, led by Penei Sewell. So I don't think you've got any massive issues. They're solid defensively. Aidan Hutchinson coming back, Tyleik Williams, their first round pick, as well, lining up opposite him. So it's more of can they gel with their new coordinators to produce at the same kind of level that they did in the previous year.
Okay, then, it's pick time. Game number 1 of the new season. Lions at Packers. Packers, no doubt, influenced by the recent acquisition of Micah Richards, who sensationally, the back injury that kept him on the sidelines throughout preseason training camp in Dallas has recovered. So that's great news for him, great news for the Packers. It's doubtful he'll play every snap, but he'll certainly have a substantial role in this game. The line has the Packers as 2.5-point favourites coming into this game. I said right at the top of the preview, they are 1-6 in the last 7 meetings against their NFC North rival Detroit Lions. They have home field advantage week 1. What say you, Charles Dagnall?
Charles Dagnall says that the Packers will go 1-7 against the Detroit Lions. I've just got the Lions in this. Packers can start slowly, and Jordan Love, takes a little bit of time to find his feet and find his rhythm, and especially with that receiving group. I just think that the Lions are pretty much set. I think they'll find their groove a lot quicker than the Green Bay Packers, and I've got them covering the spread, obviously, but I don't think it's a big win. But I think Detroit comes away with the victory in Lambeau.
Wow. So you're not buying into Parsons, Gary, McKinney and co on that defense being able to stifle the Lions' offense?
Not yet. Not
Defense
yet.
wins championships, Staggers. Can I not convince
you? Championships are not won in week 1, old son.
Well, there is that to it as well. So you're taking the Lions.
How about you?
To cover the spread. Well, guess what? I'm taking the Detroit Lions as well. I believe in Dan Campbell. I love what he's got there. I know the disappointment of last season. I do not think one game an organization makes. I like the Lions to be challenging for that number 1 seed in the NFC again this year. I too am taking the Detroit Lions. I'm surprised they're 2.5-point underdogs. And like you say, yes, they've changed coordinators, but the pieces in the jigsaw are pretty much the same. I'm taking them with this good record they've got recently over their NFC North rivals. So that we're both agreed straight off the bat, despite what you've done with your clothing attire. I've overlooked that. We are of an accord. We're both taking the Lions at 2.5-point underdogs. Okay, still to come. Steelers at Jets, the revenge game, followed by Sunday Night Football, Ravens at Bills. This week 1 card is absolutely loaded. And we'll be looking at those 2 games next. Okay, welcome back to Graves on Gridiron. 3 games to look at each week. 1 game has been broken down between myself and Charles Dagnall for you already. It's a barn burner in Lambeau Field. The Lions going to the Packers, an NFC North rivalry. And myself and Daggers are both taking the Lions to cover the spread as 2.5-point underdogs and ultimately come out on top in that one. Game 2 of our week 1 card on this week's show sees the Pittsburgh Steelers go to the New York Jets. It's Aaron Rodgers last year of the Jets against Justin Field last year of the Steelers. I said just before the break, Daggers, it's the revenge game. Well, perhaps it's not quite the revenge game in every sense, but you know what we're like in the media. Never miss an opportunity to talk about rivalry.
Right.
And I am
Let's
not
build
here.
it up. Well, do you know what? I think it's well worth building up, and I think everyone will build it up because Aaron Rodgers is always a story wherever he may be. When he was at the Jets, he was always a story. And you look at last year's statistics for the Jets, and they're pretty serviceable. When you look at, if you break it down just by the numbers. This is a weird game. For me, I don't think the game is going to live up to the build-up that it's going to get given. And tell me if I'm wrong. I know you will, Richard, but I keep looking at players on either side. I think Aaron Rodgers has got, in essence, one bloke to throw at in DK Metcalf. I know they've signed John U.
Yeah.
Smith. I know they've got Pat Frymouth. But you get rid of George Pickens, who is your absolute number one target. You bring in DK Metcalf, who I love. I love his big physical receivers, ball winners
And just
and
to point out,
matchup
that George
winners.
Pickens trade to Dallas is because Dallas are all in again this year.
Yes, they are all in again. Yes, that's very, very good point. Well made. Yes. How George Pickens will help that defense. Anyway, so I worry about who Aaron Rodgers is going to throw to. They've got a young running back who they drafted in the third round, Caleb Johnson, as well as Jalen Warren as well. So no Najee Harris anymore for the Steelers. They are going to be defensively strong. They always are. That is one thing you can guarantee. It just has 23rd on offense last year under Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. It may improve, but I don't see it improving massively for the Pittsburgh Steelers, nor does it necessarily have to. They just have to score a few more than the defense allows. They have got a wicked secondary in Jalen Ramsey. Darius Slayer's come in, Joey Porter Jr. as well. So they're always going to be solid defensively. TJ Watt up front. But I look at the matchups, and on both of these sides, Rich, and I look at DK Metcalf, and he's going up against Sauce Gardner. So they kind of cancel each other out. So let's just forget
Sauce
that.
Gardner's just been rewarded with a lucrative new deal.
He has. Garrett Wilson is going up against, from the Jets, is going up against one of Jalen Ramsey or Darius Slay. So kind of take that one out a little bit. Those cancel each other out. Do you see where I'm going on this?
I do.
I don't see a huge amount of points scored. Defensively, the Jets are very good. They were third overall last season in overall defense. I think they're very strong. But do I see Justin Fields whipping it downfield many times? Breece Hall is going to have to stay healthy. Justin Fields, I can see a lot of their yardage gains on the ground. But I don't see a hugely offensive game in this. And under new coach Aaron Glenn, I think there'll be a little bit more spirit and there'll be sort of, you mentioned about Dan Campbell, a little bit more galvanized by having him as head coach. But overall, I don't see it being the sexiest game of football. I'll put it this way. I'd be rushing to turn it on for the Rodgers factor. And maybe a little bit for the Fields factor, but as a game of offensive football, I think it's going to be a grinding affair. What say you?
Well, I say you're not helping to sell my preview show with comments like that.
I think it's going to be 43-27. Justin Fields flips 4 touchdowns.
Well, that frankly is the sublime to the ridiculous. I don't agree with that either. I think this is going to be a game for the defensive and running connoisseurs, maybe a bit of old school football. Let's put that
wrong with that
on it. You've got Jalen Warren now, who steps seamlessly into the number one running back slot on the depth chart for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Breece Hall will occupy the reciprocal position for the New York Jets. You look at what the Jets have done in the draft. Remember, 12 months ago, they drafted a left tackle in Olu Fashanu. Well, this time around, Aaron Glenn's first pick as head coach is Armand Membu, right tackle. So they're looking to solidify that offensive line. And that then not only gives you protection for a quarterback, but potentially, if Breece Hall totes the rock, it can open up some lanes for Justin Fields, who's more than capable of breaking a run or two himself. And arguably, that's the strongest suit in his quarterback armory, isn't it? Rather than throwing the ball, which, again, sounds a little bit about face, so to speak. Look, you look at the line of this, and the Steelers are 2.5-point favorites. And I think that's by virtue of better the devil you know. I remember Hard Knocks 2 years ago when, exactly. I remember Hard Knocks 2 years ago when you saw Aaron Rodgers pinging balls to receivers and beating DBs in the New York Jets secondary. And what was it the coaching staff said at the time? He's on our side. We won't come up against many quarterbacks that can make those throws against us. Mm-hmm. This is my concern about the New York Jets in a tight game. I think they have moments in games when, as good as they are individually, collectively, they can switch off. And I also think that Aaron Glenn's got this job because he was part of a successful Detroit Lions team. I think he had the luxury over the last 18 months of coaching a defense that often was playing from in front. So your opponents are playing catch up. I'm not so sure that the Lions defense is as good as what's generally accepted over the last 18 months. And so therefore I'm a doubter when it comes to Aaron Glenn and what his defense has put out there on the field. Aaron Rodgers, for all the knocks, and they're due over the last 2 or 3 years, is an experienced veteran. He's going to the Hall of Fame when he retires. He's got a Super Bowl winner's ring on his finger. I've got to be honest, if you're going to see a team score points, albeit on the road in a tight game in this matchup, it's going to be Aaron Rodgers and the Pittsburgh Steelers, regardless of how good that secondary is perceived to be for the New York Jets. They've made some free agent acquisitions and trades this year of experienced veterans. Mike Tomlin in 18 years has never had a losing season. Pittsburgh Steelers fans, I hear you. We haven't won a playoff game in 8 years. But guess what? The Jets don't even know what the playoffs are over the last 8 years. So I will lay my cards on the table right now. I'm going with the Steelers. They're 2.5-point favorites. They win on the road and they cover the spread.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. I know it makes for far better podcasting, I'm sure, if we were to go head to head and clash and go, no, Richard, you are talking absolute nonsense, but I just can't see it. And what your point was absolutely hit the nail on the head for me. The Jets can't afford to go behind because I can't see them coming from deficits and winning games with what they have at their disposal. So that is a big worry for me. And I think that Aaron Rodgers is an upgrade. He is an upgrade from Russell Wilson. He is an upgrade from Justin Fields. And he knows he can spot things in defensives that other quarterbacks cannot. He can see little weaknesses. He can see matchups. That is something that you can't buy. You only get from experience and someone who's as good as he has been. So he's not the same Aaron Rodgers, but I think he's an upgrade. And I go with you. I'm with the Pittsburgh Steelers to take it this time.
Wow, we're 2 from 2. Let's see if we can find a slip of paper between us as we look at our third and final game that we're previewing in this Week 1 card. I'm going to take our listeners to Sunday Night Football, the opening prime time slot on Sunday night of the season. This is potentially an AFC Championship clash right here in Week 1. It's the Baltimore Ravens going to the Buffalo Bills. It's John Harbaugh with a Lombardi Trophy and a Super Bowl winner's ring as a coach to his name against Sean McDermott, who is desperate to climb that mountain and to taste that same success. I'll tell you how close this one is. The bookies have it as just 1 point between these two sides. The Bills, by virtue of home field advantage, are 1-point favourites. When you look at these two teams, what do you see?
I'm looking at these two teams right now, Rich. And I look at the Baltimore Ravens, and with the additions that they have made, the draft picks that they have brought in, they got Mike Green in the second round. He was touted as being a mid-first round pick, the edge rusher. And when you add Malachi Starks in there to go along with the best safety in football in Kyle Hamilton, they were first offensively last year. They were 10th defensively last year, so they've added a little bit to their defense. They've also brought Jair Alexander in as well. And I don't see a weakness. I just don't see a weakness.
Let me stop you there, because I'm going to just throw something out there now. And I've got friends who are Ravens fans, and they are going to scream at whatever device they're listening to when I say this. Lamar Jackson, 2-time NFL MVP. However, his postseason record is 3-5. Is he the AFC equivalent of Dak Prescott?
I no wonder. I'm not even a Ravens fan, Richard Graves, and that is shocking comparison. I can't speak. Where do you want me to begin? Lamar Jackson.
I'm just doing my job. I'm just throwing it out. I'm not saying it is. I'm just throwing it out there for debate.
Oh, there's your content clip for social media, I tell you. That is offensive, I feel, to Lamar Jackson. However, yeah, the postseason record is a concern. Like many, and this is the problem. We are in an age. It's a little bit like the tennis players thing when you've got Djokovic and Federer and Nadal all together at one time, a great era of men's tennis. What you have in the AFC is a great era of three quarterbacks in Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, and Lamar Jackson, and they're all in it at the same time, and only one can ever win when it comes to Super Bowl time. I look at the moves that the Ravens have made. I'm just ignoring your Dak Prescott comparison, which is mildly awful. I think my only worry for the Baltimore Ravens, and this is where I do look, they're going to win the division. They're going to be playoff bound, whether it's via a bye or they have to play in the first round. I'm not sure. They are notoriously slow starters. That is what the Baltimore Ravens have to overcome. They are slow starters, and then they get things together, and Lamar gets everything together. I want them to hit the ground running this year, and if they do, I think they are a strong or one of the strongest Super Bowl contenders. Now, your first one's on the road at Buffalo. What I will say is if you are going to be at Highmark Stadium in Buffalo, early season is the time to do it, not later season where it's cold and the Bills Mafia are going absolutely crazy because they're in contention as well. So this is a good time to go and play the Buffalo Bills. And if you look on paper, player for player, I would argue that the Baltimore Ravens have it over the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills have that little secret ingredient, and they have that magic, and they can make things from very little. We thought this time last year, remember, the Buffalo Bills had got rid of a load of free agents, and we didn't think Josh Allen would have anyone to throw to. This guy is a top 3 quarterback in the National Football League, and he wins you games, and he knows how to win
And
you
the
games.
reigning NFL MVP.
Well, absolutely right. And so the clash is mouth-watering. It's a brilliant, brilliant primetime game to have. First up, secretly would I like to see these guys play against each other in week 6 or week 7? Yeah, maybe, because they haven't necessarily, all teams have not necessarily got their game fully going at the start of the season. But it is mouth-watering, isn't it, Richard? I mean, the Bills have added, they've added Joey Bosa, which theoretically, if he can stay fit alongside Greg Rousseau, that is a much better defensive front for the Buffalo Bills. I worry about their safeties and their secondary. They were 24th against the pass last year. I don't think they've necessarily improved it from a safety perspective. They brought in Maxwell Hairston, their first round pick at cornerback. So yes, they've ticked that little box, but I still think there are issues in the safety department. But just to look on paper, and that's all we can do, because none of these guys have played a game yet, I just think that the Ravens are ready. They are ready. They've added brilliantly. I don't see a weak link. And you talk about going all in, Richard. I think this is the Ravens all-in season.
Yeah, and another indication of that, you mentioned Malachi Starks, their rookie first-round draft pick, taken 27 overall, the safety out of Georgia. Georgia's defense over the last few years has been sensational. Well, now he lines up alongside Kyle Hamilton, who one of the best safeties in the game, shown his value to this organization by being rewarded with a 4-year, $100 million contract this off-season. They've brought in experienced help at receiver for Lamar Jackson, DeAndre Hopkins. Nobody's pretending that his best days aren't behind him, but we saw the Chiefs try and utilize the experience last year, and I think John Harbaugh's looking for something similar this time around, just to help guide this receiving core and give their offense that extra option, that extra dimension, which if you're being ultra critical, an offense which has blown away most opponents over the last 2 or 3 years, perhaps in the key moments, has just lacked a bit of savvy, a bit of nous to get over the hump in the big game. The hope will be he can bring some of that to this team. And you look at the Lamar Jackson story, and being in all seriousness now, you look at the playoff road that he's taken over the last 2 years. Well, he's 500 with his record. He's 2-2. They took care of both the Steelers and the Texans over the last 2 years. Lost to the Bills and the Kansas City Chiefs. Make no mistake about it. These are the games now that matter for this Ravens side. If they're to go back to the big dance, if they're to raise the Lombardi Trophy again. Equally for the Buffalo Bills, Josh Allen, for me, had his best season, bar none, last time around, was rightfully recognised with that. You mentioned Joey Bosa being brought in as a free agent. Von Miller's the guy that's now gone to the Commanders. So you've still got that experience and know how to help the defensive line and still able to play. I think he's better than Von Miller was at the same stage joining the Buffalo
Can he
Bills.
stay healthy, though? Can he stay healthy?
That's the question. And I think it'll all be down to game management from Sean McDermott and his coaching staff. What they tried to do with Von Miller was pick the moments they put him in the game to get the best out of him. It didn't always work. I think Joey Bosa is a better version of that veteran player right now, so it may well work. They've rewarded James Cook, of course, their number one running back, with a 4-year, $48 million contract to end his hold-in during training camp. And then you've lost Amari Cooper at receiver. You bring in Josh Palmer, which I think is a really interesting move because he doesn't come up with all the razzmatazz and publicity that Amari Cooper came with, but he does give you an aerial presence. He's got a good wingspan. He can make plays, and he comes from a Chargers organization that were a run-first offense, not a throw-first offense, even with Justin Herbert there at quarterback. So I honestly, I struggle to find a slip of paper when you come into week one. Derrick Henry is going to be the key factor. Can you stop him?
I was wondering, we've been talking about this game for like seven minutes or something like that, and we've only just mentioned Derrick Henry. So I feel a little bit foolish from making, well, for not mentioning him earlier. I was looking at the stats last year. I can't see it being any different. Yes, he's aging, but he didn't look like there was any deceleration of his powers, both physically and from a speed perspective. They averaged 180 yards on the ground per game. Now, if you can replicate, even if you lose 10 yards from that, you're still probably one of the best rushing teams in the league, and we know what Philly did with Saquon and Baltimore. Yeah. So there's that to factor in as well, how much of a threat they are. The two tight ends, if Mark Andrews can stay fit, you've got Isaiah Likely, who had a breakout year last year as well for the Baltimore Ravens. So, yeah, adding all of that into consideration when you're pounding the rock with Derrick Henry, they do look a fearsome unit.
The problem that you've got with the tight ends, I think they will be a threat later in the season, but Isaiah Likely picked up an injury in training camp pre-season, so he won't be available week one, but I don't think that detracts from this offense. The Bills are 1-point favourites. Where do you see it going?
You say there's hardly a slip of paper between these two sides, and that's what I see from all of the build-up of given the Baltimore Ravens. You're going into Buffalo, and that is a factor in itself, and some can get over that. And I also bring in this slow starting historically from the Baltimore Ravens. I'm going to go Buffalo Bills. I think it's going to be a fantastic opening game. I really do think it's going to be close. And even if there was a sort of 13-point difference at the half, I still think that can be made up by either of these two sides. So I'm leaning just, and it is just, by a slightly bigger slip of paper for the Buffalo Bills.
Wow, you spend 7 to 8 minutes talking up the Ravens, and then you go for the team you barely
See
acknowledged.
What I did there? See what I did there? Yeah, I'm leaning towards Buffalo.
Dagnall. No shame. It's also worth throwing into the equation that this, of course, is the last time the Buffalo Bills will be kicking off the season at Highmark Stadium, because next year they go into their brand new state-of-the-art facility being built just across the way. So that adds to the plot. So the question becomes, can the Baltimore Ravens play the role of party poopers, pop the balloons, and spoil the party this Sunday night in Buffalo? I always think the Ravens start strong and then they get found out in the playoffs. I've got on this slip of paper, Bills 1-point favourites, home field advantage, take the Bills. But you know what? You've talked me into Baltimore. I'm going to jump on the Lamar train and ride Derrick Henry all the way to the end zone on this one. Charles Dagnall, you may not believe what you're selling, but I do. I'm taking the Baltimore Ravens on the road, week 1 point underdogs. Lamar, prove me right.
My job here is done. You see what I did there? I've just given you a plethora of things to love about the Baltimore Ravens, who are going to be there or thereabouts. But in this week 1 matchup, just pulled the rug from under you, gone Buffalo Bills, and now I've put you in a state of confusion, which I'm always a fan of. But they're brilliant matchups, all of them. Having these week 1 matchups, Richard, with storylines, and these are just 3 of the ones that we've picked out. That it really is. It makes me now just want to start watching immediately.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you look wherever you look on this week 1 slate. Thursday night kickoff. The champions, Philadelphia Eagles, host the Cowboys. The rivalry in that is the narrative above anything else.
Hey, I tell you what, people are going to be lining up. People are going to be lining up to watch Kenny Clark on the interior line. Let me tell you.
It's about making this team better right now, Daggers. Moving on, you go to. We haven't even mentioned the second game in Brazil to be played, which will be on Friday night. The Chiefs against the Chargers. Elsewhere, can the Carolina Panthers pick up where they left off last season? Because if they can, they could be underdogs that shoot to prominence this season. They take on the Jags, the Bengals, and the Browns, an AFC North rivalry. What will Pete Carroll's Raiders and Mike Vrabel's Patriots look like? There's another question. And what about Dan Quinn and his Commanders? Is Jaden Daniels the real deal, or was last year a one-year show and they'll regress this year round? These are questions we won't know the answers to until the games are played. And there's a whole list of other games that will give serious pointers to how this season will play out, even as early as week 1. Okay, so let's recap then. We started with the Lions and Packers. Both myself and Daggers are taking the Lions as 2.5-point underdogs to cover in that game. Then it's the Steelers and Jets. The Jets, 2.5-point underdogs at home to the Steelers. There's a reason for that, folks. Don't be fooled. Take the Steelers to cover, albeit on the road, as 2.5-point favourites. And then we finish, of course, with Sunday Night Football. The Ravens at the Bills. Daggers talked up the Ravens and then didn't believe what he was selling and has taken the Bills as 1-point favourites. Whereas me, I'm not being fooled. I'm taking the Dak Prescott of the AFC, Lamar Jackson, to lead his team on the road as 1-point dogs to overcome the Buffalo Bills. That wraps up the 3 games we're previewing, but I do have season pointers that I want to ask you, Daggers. I want your dark horse in terms of a team for this season. I want the team you think will be picking number 1 overall in the draft next season, finishing with the worst record, and who your Super Bowl winners will be when the dust settles in Santa Clara this coming February. So let's start. We go from worst to best. Let's start with that team with the worst record. Remember, it was the Tennessee Titans that picked number 1 overall and took quarterback Cam Ward. This time around, who will be sitting on the clock with the number 1 overall pick in their hands once the Super Bowl's done in February?
Allow me to play out the story here, Rich. I think that the New Orleans Saints are going to have the worst record in football. They've got this Tyler Shuck and Spencer Rattler and other people that are trying to be a quarterback for the New Orleans Saints. They've not got a massive wealth of talent. I think this is I don't think it's a tank season, because I hate using that. I don't think any professional player tanks. But I don't think they're going to be wildly successful. But I think it's lined up to take Arch Manning, number 1, next year in the NFL draft to go.
It's not going to happen. It's going to happen. It's not going to happen because in another life, I keep an eye on what the Texas Longhorns are doing. Everything I hear is that Archie Manning's going to stay an extra year in college football with the Longhorns. So it may well be the Saints that pick number 1 overall, but I doubt they'll have the opportunity to take Archie Manning next year. That remains to be seen. Funnily enough, I had the New Orleans Saints on my short list as well for the team to finish with the worst record. But it's Kellen Moore's first year as head coach. He is a good offensive brain. Mm-hmm. I think he might have enough to eke out just enough wins to avoid having the number 1 overall pick. Liam Cohen's the new head coach at the Jacksonville Jaguars. They've got a lot to overcome. It's a big year for Trevor Lawrence. So they could be in and around that spot again. Remember, they picked number 2 overall this time around. And yet, there's one
I,
team that stands out for me above them. And I'm
no,
frankly
I know where you're
amazed
going. I know where you're going.
that the head coach is still in situ, given the overall record of the New York Giants over the last 2 or 3 years. Brian Daboll has somehow hung on to his job. He's not the general manager, but he was part of the setup that gave Daniel Jones the new contracts before they decided to release him. He's now gone to Indianapolis, of course. Russell Wilson's suddenly been parachuted in as the starter for week 1. I do subscribe to this theory that inside the first 6 weeks of the season, we might be seeing Jackson Dart under center for the New York Giants. If that happens, you better believe the Giants are in full-on rebuild mode. I think that they're going to. They've danced around this spot for the last several years, albeit the one exception where Daniel Jones got them a playoff win sensationally with the way they finished that season. I think they'll get the number 1 overall pick this time around. So I'm taking the New York Giants when April comes around next year. Okay, let's be a bit more optimistic. Let's look at your dark horse to watch out for this season.
I think there are a couple, actually. I've made a short list. I've got 3 on there. I'm tempted in a weird way to go for my Bucks. But I don't. Not many are talking about them. Shock. But not many are talking about. I think they're going to have a good season. I do. I think they're going to be good. But as a dark horse, I'm leaning towards the New England Patriots.
Ooh.
I think they could be tasty. I don't think they're in a particularly strong division outside of Buffalo. I think Miami and the New York Jets are not going to be challenging. I think they could be anything. I really do. And I think that the New England Patriots, I think Drake May showed me enough to show he's now got a big tackle. They've brought in players around him. And I think there is enough to sort of say, I'm not saying they're going to win it. I just think they are going to have a far better year than maybe some are predicting. They say that they were the side that won the draft, if you can win a draft. But I'm also intrigued as to what Pete Carroll will do in Las Vegas. But I'm just saying that a dark horse for playoff contention. I like to think that New England could be under Vrabel in his, in this season. I think they are a little. I just think they're interesting. I think they're a really interesting prospect for this season. What about you?
Well, I'll just write down, because we need to make a note of this. You've gone for Saints as the worst record, and now you've gone for the Patriots as your dark horse. I was tempted to go for another team with a second-year quarterback under center, and it made me smile because it's you that's the guest on this week's podcast to kick off the new season. So I actually like the idea of Michael Penix and that offense with the Atlanta Falcons. However, it's another team away on the West Coast who I think are going to be the dark horses. They were a team that were talked about 12 months ago, and with injuries and so on, never quite got to that point. But look no further than second-year head coach at the Chargers, Jim Harbaugh, and what he's doing there. They've drafted Amarion Hampton at running back. He is going to tote the rock regularly and often this time around. Najee Harris, the experienced veterans, come over from Pittsburgh, putting to one side his 4th of July fireworks accident. And Keenan Allen, another veteran, knows the organization well. He's come back at wide receiver this time around. You align that with what they've got on defense with Khalil Mack, Derwin James, I love as a safety in this league. They've brought in Mekhi Becton, fresh off his Super Bowl success with the offensive line of the Philadelphia Eagles, to plug straight in at right guard for the Chargers. They are going to run the ball, make no mistake about it. I liked a lot of what I saw from them last year. I just felt that due to circumstance, they weren't able to get over the line. I expect them to be a postseason team this time around.
Do you think they're in a tough division? Peyton and Bo Nix have got something going in Denver. I think
Yep.
Pete Carroll and Gino and Ashton Genty at Las Vegas, they're going to be spicier this year. And you've got the Kansas City Chiefs. So can the Chargers make that much of an impression in that division?
Well, that is the beauty of having 7 teams make it to the postseason, isn't it? For
Yeah,
each
true.
conference, you do have that option. 3 teams can go from one division, as we saw last season. So I do think that they can make it. I'm not buying into Pete Carroll and the Raiders. I
Okay.
just can't look at them in all seriousness. Even if Pete Carroll's able to turn it around, he's still a season away, given that the mess that organization was in when he arrived at the start of this off season. I do like the Chargers. They're my dark horses. The Patriots are yours. So what about the team that rises to the top? Who are going to be the Philadelphia Eagles of Super Bowl 60? Will it be the Eagles going back to back, or do you see somebody else stepping into the fray?
They've got a chance. I mean, they're loaded, the Philadelphia Eagles. But they say the hardest thing in sports is to repeat. Given an NFL that is this loaded with talent, I find it very difficult that just one injury and the Philadelphia Eagles could be a different team. Despite losing their first game of the season against the Buffalo Bills, which they will, I have
Wow.
written down. This is their time. I've written down the Baltimore Ravens. I think this is their time. But they'll get off to a bad start in Buffalo.
You don't believe in them week 1, but you believe in them to go all the way and win it all.
As a whole,
well,
yes.
If that is not covering your own backside, Daggers, I do not know what is.
Made a career of it.
Okay,
what say you? Come on, who is your number one?
You're taking the Ravens. I looked at it. You know me. I love the Kansas City Chiefs. Anytime Patrick Mahomes is on the field, I think he's got to be taken seriously. However, I don't think the Chiefs win it this time. I think too many of their pieces getting to the wrong side of their prime right now. Who else have you got? The Bills, I've already said I like. The Eagles, I'm with you. I think they're loaded this time and have as good a chance as any Super Bowl winning team to go back to back. The Packers, you've got to like just because of what they've done. They've made a bold move, a very un-Packers-like move in the way they traded to take Micah Parsons from a perceived conference rival in the Cowboys. The Chargers I've called dark horses. The Lions, I love what Dan Campbell does there. They'll be in the fray again. But I'm going for a Super Bowl winner from left field. I'm going for a team that hasn't so much as won a playoff game in the last decade. In fact,
oh my God, you're not.
The last time this team won in the postseason, they won it all with Peyton Manning under center in Santa Clara, Levi Stadium, Super Bowl 50. That's right. The Denver Broncos. You mentioned you like what Sean Payton and Bo Nix are doing. You look at their roster. Defensively, this is an organization that is absolutely loaded from front end to back. They've got, for me, what is the best defensive back in the NFL right now in Patrick Surtain II. On offense, Bo Nix. Look, Sean Payton saw something in last year's draft that not many others did, and then he delivered to take them all the way to the playoffs. And despite I think it was 31-7 scoreline defeat they had in Buffalo, for much of that game, they ran the Bills pretty darn close. They've brought in experience at running back, where I think they were weak last season. J.K. Dobbins, if you can keep him healthy, that is definitely an asset. And they've got a rookie behind him in R.J. Harvey as well. Add Cortland Sutton on the outside. Marvin Mims, I think the best of him is yet to come. They've also brought in Evan Ingram, a pass-catching tight end, to give Bo Nix another option. Sean Payton has been there, done it, worn the T-shirt, and he knows how to take a team all the way again. So people are probably looking at their device right now and saying, what on earth? Mark my words. We're recording this on Monday, the 1st of September, 2025. When the dust settles in Santa Clara and you see Sean Payton lifting that Lombardi Trophy, you will come back to this podcast and say right here, right now, I called it. The Denver Broncos are running out of Super Bowl 60 as Super Bowl champions.
Nurse! He's got out again. He's got out. Come get him.
And this is where the madness starts, Daggers. We've got a full season of this.
We so have. I mean, I love it. I love that you've talked yourself into it. It's so not going to happen. I can't tell you how much that's not going to happen, but I like how dedicated you are to your own cause. And look, I'm not buying what you're selling. Some would say, like as you said, Lamar Jackson is the AFC's Dak Prescott. You are basically saying that Bo Nix is the AFC's Tom Brady, taking a side that doesn't go to the playoffs to the Super Bowl and winning it. Come now.
How have you
Richard.
brought this back to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers?
Have to. It's because I'm wearing a Green Bay hat. That's what it is. I just want to make sure that people understand where my loyalties lie. I like it. I like it, Rich.
Listen, it's been an absolute blast, and I hope for our listeners, we've set up the season nicely. Obviously, I'll be back every week previewing select games from that week's card and giving indicators of where I think, if you fancy a wager on the game, you might want to look. Daggers, I hope to have you back at regular intervals throughout the season again as well.
Would love to be back. Always enjoy it, mate. And such a great host and such a great program. So here's to next time.
Absolutely. You're too kind. Just to remind then of the Lions and Packers. The Lions are 2.5-point underdogs. Both myself and Daggers are taking the Lions to cover there. Then it's the Steelers going to New York to face the Jets. Pittsburgh 2.5-point favourites in that game. Both myself and Daggers are backing Aaron Rodgers in the revenge game to not only win the game but cover that spread before we finish on Sunday Night Football. And lest it ever be said that Daggers has the courage of his convictions, because he certainly didn't in previewing this one. Talking up the Rams, he's taking the Bills as 1-point favourites to win and cover. I'm taking Lamar Jackson and the Ravens as underdogs to come through in that. Daggers, it's been a blast. Look forward to having you back on again. And remember, between now and Sunday, if you want to chew over the fat, discuss anything that's happening in the NFL, you can catch me on X at Richard Graves 1. Instagram is at RDG Media UK. The website is www.rdgmedia.uk. Talking Sport is the tab to click on, and we'll have a written preview of these 3 games as well. But Daggers, we look forward to having you on again. Say so long, everyone.
So long, everyone.
So long, everyone. We'll see you next week on Graves on Gridiron.